you're the CEO of an 800 plus millionaire mastermind. Most of the people in the group, multimillionaires. You oversee a family office, and and you yourself are a multimillionaire. And so, dude, what's your superpower? What's your secret to this advancement that I've seen you do over the last few years? And what advice would you have for somebody that's literally trying to accomplish the same thing, which is most of my audience, right? We're here, we're trying to become financially free. We want to accomplish big dreams and goals. And you're walking the path, but you've walked a huge piece of it already, which is really, really, really inspiring.
Yeah, well, look, man, I'm honored that you would mention that and bring that up. I remember looking up to you back in the day, and still do look up to you. I remember you would sit in Tahoe by the fireplace, sitting cross-legged, journaling at 9 at night, and then at 4 in the morning, you're still there doing it. And I'm like, man, what the heck is going on with this guy? Like, he's into it. He's dialed in. To answer your question, for me, I think my superpower is service. And I keep saying this, and one person actually called me out and saying it was a bad perspective. So I'll be curious to hear your thought. But I have this belief, Sam, that service is the Trojan horse to knowledge. So if you want to learn anything in the world, just serve the people who do it already, and they'll tell you everything they know. Now, the person said, well, like, a Trojan horse can be seen as bad. I was like, well, yeah, if the Trojan horse comes into your castle, it's terrible. But if you're the group trying to attack the castle, the Trojan horse was the thing, right? That's how you got in. So for me, like, I just always try to serve. And what happens when you serve is, people will reward you in amazing ways. The world will reward you in amazing ways. God, the universe, whatever you believe in, it just shows up in beautiful ways. And so, what started off as service for the GoBundance members in the back of the room 10 years ago, volunteering and making sure people had water in their cup, has transpired and given me the opportunity to be in rooms where people had to have certain qualifications and pay thousands of dollars to be there. I was there for free. Now, I wasn't getting paid, but like, honestly, everything I learned, Sam, I should have been paying to be in there, right? Like, it's incredible. Everything that I've learned, everything I've acquired from a knowledge perspective. And the number one way I do that is I just try to serve. So, whether it's with you, whether it's with David, whether it's with Pat, Tim, doesn't matter. How can I serve you? How can I help? I just got off the phone with the owner of the Cincinnati Reds. Like, how did I get into that relationship? Like, I just provided service. I just showed up and said, how can I be of service to you? How can I help you? And I don't get in people's face and go like, how can I help? How can I help? But what I do, Sam, is I step back, I look at what people are doing, I listen to what people are saying, and I say, how can I be of service to them? Whether it's just picking up their backpack and handing it to them, or making sure they had water, or, just pausing and saying, hey, I remember you mentioned your wife was sick. How's she doing? It's just being super intentional with people. And I think, what I always try to do is be a man of my word. So if I say I'm going to do something, I try to do it. Now, I say I try to do it because at the end of the day, Sam, I'm human. I think all of the listeners on this call would agree we're all human until such a time where we're robots and just machines, which you're pretty dang close to. But, until we're robots and machines, we're going to make mistakes. The only difference between a rut and a grave is how long you choose to stay there. So I lead with a servant heart. I try to avoid judgment for myself and others. And then I try to just continue to be the most humble version of myself that I can, because I know every single person I meet every single day can teach me something, whether it's the janitor at the airport or the pilot of the airplane or the person who owns the entire airport. It doesn't matter. They all have a lesson to teach me, and they all have wisdom that I can take and apply to my life to make it better.
Dude, that's amazing. And one of the things, pure gold, by the way, that's a podcast right there. Like, mic drop.
7
like,
minutes,
I'm good,
done.
dude. Thanks for being on the show. I'm reminded of a story, and I want to tell it. It's about you. And I want to tell it because I think one of the things that I hear whenever I hear someone preach service, and one of the fears, and frankly, one of my fears is, like, I'll think of a guy like David Osborne, who we both know he was on the podcast. He was the last episode. So I think you'll be the episode right after him. And a lot of my audience will know him and know what he's about. And so, it's like, well, someone that's way more successful than I am, what can I offer them? Right? Is like the first thought, or maybe call it a limiting belief or a negative belief. And we're like, well, is there really anything I can give them? But man, one of the stories that David Osborne shared, and now you're overseeing his family office, but one of the stories he shared about you that I thought was so beautiful, and I want to get your perspective on it because I actually haven't asked you about it, is he shared one of the first GoBundance events he was at, or you were at. You came up to him and said, hey, I know your wife is coming into town. do you want me to go to your hotel room and refresh the room before she gets here? And the way he tells the story is great. He kind of like looks at you and he's like, that's a weird request. Like, no, I'm good. Thank you. And then he goes about his day and like an hour or two later, he thinks about it and he's like, actually, like my wife would probably really appreciate that. And that would be really awesome. And so he comes back to you and is like, hey, is the offer still stand? Would you go to my hotel room and refresh it? And you're like, yeah, heck yeah. And you go up and you make the room look really nice. And so you served somebody, you know, in a way that like most people wouldn't have normally thought about. That is not a common ask, man. That's even a little, I'd say that's even like a little uncommon, even took David Osborne by surprise a little bit. So what was going through your head in that moment? Because we're talking about service. And so I want to just kind of like get your perspective on that moment. What was going on in your head?
Yeah. So, I mean, look, like, I think sometimes we have to try to dial into awareness of our subconscious in addition to our conscious mind, which I know you're all familiar with. But, you know, for me, there was just something like intuitively, something subconsciously that was just like, man, this guy is somebody you want to be around. This guy is somebody that you want to aspire to be like. And so like what went through my mind was literally like, I walked into his room to get his ski boots. I knew Tracy was coming up that night. I was like, dude, your room is a disaster. Like, I wasn't married at the time. I had a, you know, girlfriend who's now my wife. And I was thinking to myself, like, if Melissa came here, she'd be like, dude, what happened? Like, the last thing I want to do is come on a vacation with you and be cleaning up after you. Like, I do that at home. And so I was just like, you know, here this guy has been pouring knowledge and wisdom into all of these people at this event, you know, 150 people for the last day and a half. I've been so privileged to be in the back of the room hearing it. And I was like, man, the least I could do is return the favor. I was just like, dude, like, let me just straighten up your room. You know, like, I didn't think anything of it. Like, it wasn't weird or off or anything to me. It was just like purely like, how can I serve this person in this moment? And you know, like, what's ironic or interesting about it is like, you know, I haven't changed that perspective at all. And what's even more ironic is that David has that same perspective. And so I think what you started with is like, sometimes we have this story of like, that person has great success. So who am I to serve them? You know, I would challenge you and anybody that has that same limiting belief that I have at times too is, you know, Elon Musk, right? Probably one of the most brilliant business people in the world today. Probably one of the most like pioneer type guys you could think of.
For sure.
I can almost guarantee you somebody doesn't put on his underwear every day. Like, I can almost guarantee you he puts on his own socks. I can almost guarantee you he puts on his own shoes the same way you do, the same way I do. And I can guarantee you that in his life, in his day, there are some bumps and some rocks and some issues that regardless of how big or how small, you could provide value around. Whether it's like, wow, hey, you know, wrong coffee cup, or hey, coffee was too hot, or hey, you know what, let me tie your shoe, or whatever it is, right? Like, there's something you can do to serve him. There's something I could do to serve David. And I just try to continue to do that for the people I touch. And what's really cool about it, Sam, is like, David is that too. So when you find people that are like that, then you can really build this really cool relationship where you can have each other's back. I mean, there's days still to this day where David will come upstairs as I'm getting ready to leave his house, because that's where I work out of primarily. And he will grab my lunch box or like my lunch bag, and he'll carry it to my car for me. I mean, it's like a 2-pound lunch bag. I got it, dude. I can carry this. But he's like, I just want to do something for you today. Like, let me just carry this to your car. I'm like, dude, like, you don't have to carry it to my car. It's fine. He's like, no, I'm carrying it to the car. And like, he'll literally do stuff like that all the time just to show like, hey, nothing is above me. Nothing is below me. Like, at the end of the day, we're all here to serve each other. And, you know, I think money is just a byproduct of that service. And so I think if you focus on the service like David has, or like I have, or like my parents taught me, you know, the world rewards you in these incredible ways.